when is Qiyamah going to take place? We all know that no one knows. But with so much that is going on about the signs of Qiyamah, the signs of the coming of the Mahdi, one wonders if it will not take place tomorrow, next week, or maybe next month, or whether Qiyamah will take place next year. I say, do not concern ourselves about that. Do not worry. Because I know for sure that Qiyamah will not happen for the next 40 years, based on what we were taught since our madrasa days. After I outline this belief that we were taught and compare it to what the Quran says, you decide what is true. So, let us verify the truth. Salamun alaikum, peace be with you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. I am Ayub Karim and welcome to my channel, Quran Inspires Me. Let us begin with the end of times, Qiyamah, a straightforward matter that has been seriously complicated into an issue that does not make sense. According to the Quran, Qiyamah can take place at any time. Today or tomorrow, we do not know. Only Allah knows. That's according to the Quran, Surah 7, verse 187. There are other verses as well, but I am referring you to just one ayah. However, very briefly, according to the religion of Islam, or traditional Islam if you wish to call it, or call it Sunnism if you like, there is an unspoken certainty that Qiyamah will definitely not take place today, tomorrow, or any time in the near future. Is it possible that they, the Sunni Muslims, never thought about this? I never thought about this previously, and maybe now you can think about this as well. They have a fairly good indication as to when the day of Qiyamah will happen. We were taught that Prophet Jesus will come a second time to this world. He will rule the world for 40 years. Then he will die, and only after that, Qiyamah will come upon us. So, no Qiyamah will take place for the next 40 years. That is, counting from the day he comes back. So we all have a window period of 40 years, plus an unknown window period, that is, from the time he comes back to earth. So while we wait for the second coming of Prophet Jesus, there can be no Qiyamah. This teaching blatantly negates the Quran. The Quran states that Qiyamah can take place at any time, but the religion of Islam says no Qiyamah, because Jesus must first come back a second time to the earth, then there will be Qiyamah. This belief that we were taught is kufr. This belief is blasphemy. But we were all brought up to believe this kufr belief, this anti-Quranic concept, and the whole Sunni world believes so. So, I stopped believing in the second coming of Prophet Jesus, and I stopped many other things as well. You will notice as we go along in this video. Remember, we were taught and brought up with beliefs and practices for which there are no evidence or proofs in the Quran. I advise you at this point that what I am about to say after this may make you feel uneasy and uncomfortable. You may get upset and even offended. My intention is not to offend anyone, but to share some of my study and research with you. This is definitely not for the faint-hearted Muslims. You may not like what I have to say. Not everyone has a stomach for this. So I advise you to switch off now. One more chance, switch off now. I used to be a practicing Sunni Muslim, and I belong to the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah of traditional Islam, or namely the religion of Islam. I dropped the label Sunni and I maintained the label of Muslim. I upgraded from traditional Islam or from religion of Islam to Deenillah. I subscribe to the Quran and only the Quran. Many say that there is no difference between Deen al-Islam and the religion of Islam. They say it is the same thing. I disagree. It's not the same thing. Here are a few reasons why it is not the same thing. And these are some of the reasons why I left the religion of Islam. Number one, there is a very big difference between Deenillah and the religion of Islam, or as others say, traditional Islam. Deenillah is given by Allah in the Quran. So Allah has everything to do with Deenillah, and Deenillah has everything to do with Allah. However, there is absolutely nothing religious about Deenillah and there is nothing religious about Allah. People took the prescribed way of Allah, that is Deenillah, and polluted it, thereby reducing it to a mere religion which we now refer to as the religion of Islam or traditional Islam, which in reality is a man-made concept. Look at the history of people of the previous prophets. For example, Prophet Moses and Jesus. Watch my next video, QIM 034, for this. The same thing happened to the followers of Prophet Muhammad. Allah has nothing to do with traditional Islam or the religion of Islam or Sunniism. Deenillah has nothing to do with religion, even the religion of Islam. The Sahih Sittah and other so-called Islamic books has everything to do with the religion of Islam or traditional Islam. Allah has nothing to do with any religion, whether it be traditional Islam, the religion of Islam, Christianity, Judaism or any other religion. Allah never gave anyone a religion. Yet ironically, all religions and the followers aspire to be religious within the dictates of their own religions and claim to know everything about God. The religion of Islam or traditional Islam is no exception. The religion of Islam and every other religion on this planet is the creation of men. I will show cause and proofs from the Quran that every person in every religion, including the religion of Islam, are not in submission to Allah. Number 2, the Miraj, the supposed ascension of Prophet Muhammad into the 7 heavens. This narration, this hadith insults Allah. It belittles Allah and attacks His attributes, which even Iblis did not dare to do. It further demeans and humiliates Prophet Muhammad and portrays Prophet Moses as one who knows better than Allah. If anyone applies just a little common sense to this narration, you will see the folly of this hadith. This supposed ascension of Prophet Muhammad into the 7 heavens is not found in the Quran. This is heresy. Number 3, as I mentioned earlier, there is nothing religious about Allah. There are more than 100 attributes of Allah in the Quran, and none of those attributes are religious attributes. Check it out in the Quran and think about the attributes of Allah. The Quran is not a religious book. The Old Testament is a religious book. The New Testament is a religious book. The hadiths of the Sunnis and the hadiths of the Shias are religious books with tons and tons of religious instructions. The Quran is not a religious book with religious instruction. The Quran is by far superior to just being a mere religious book. As I mentioned earlier as well, there is nothing religious about Deenillah. Everybody says that we belong to Deen al-Islam, that is the religion of Islam. This statement that is made by traditional Muslims is not true, because Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Christians, etc. can belong to Deen al-Islam. You are most welcome to watch my video QIM 015, where I briefly explain what Islam is. Number 4, Deen al-Islam and Deenillah revolves around taqwa. The religion of Islam or traditional Islam revolves around fatwa, and fatwa has become the leading and dominant factor in controlling and exploiting the lives of its followers to the degree where it now supersedes the Quran, just like its sister religions Judaism and Christianity. Number 5, the religion of Islam or traditional Islam is packed with sins. If you don't do this, it's a sin. If you do that, it's a sin. The concept of sin or sins originated with paganism and is flourishing in all religions. Pagans use this concept to drive people into a guilt complex, and modern day religion are using this pagan psychology to exploit people into guilt about everything. According to the Quran, there are no sins. According to the Quran, if you go against Deenillah, that constitutes transgressions and not sins. Sin and transgression is not the same thing. Number 6, the Quran calls for submission to Allah. In traditional Islam, there is physical prostration in relation to worship. Worship and physical prostration is traced back to paganism. The concept of worship and prostration thrives on the psychological principle of inculcating fear, not so much the fear of God, but the fear of what God will do to you. That is the fear of being punished by God in this world and the hereafter. And they exploit their followers to the maximum with this psychology. Worship and the physical prostration found and practiced in traditional Islam is not found within the contextual understanding in the Quran. Number 7. In traditional Islam, there is ritualized prayer and too much of it. The concept of ritualized prayers originated with paganism. All pagan religions impress upon its followers the importance and the need for ritualized prayer. They use God as bait, and then they influence the people to worship others beside God Almighty. The many prayers that the religion of Islam teaches, which is based on man-made books, is definitely not found in the Quran. According to the Quran, there is, for example, zikr, which is different from dua, and dua is different from salah, and salah is different from tasbih, etc., etc. And these that I mentioned, none of them are ritual prayers according to the Quran. Every religion has prayers, including traditional Islam. However, according to the Quran, the concept of ritual prayer does not exist. Number 8. There are 5 pillars in traditional Islam. That is your Shahada, Namaz, which they now say is Salah. Then there is fasting, Zakah and Hajj. There are no 5 pillars in Deenillah like that in traditional Islam. The Quran is its one and only foundation. Salah, Zakat, etc. are found in the Quran, but Deen al-Islam and Deenillah does not constitute a 5-pillar religion. These are just a few points. I know all this sounds very strange and maybe even weird or blasphemous to you, but I want you to think we were never taught to understand the Quran. So we took it for granted that what we were taught is the truth. We just accepted and practiced everything that was taught to us without questioning anything. The Quranic evidence and proofs I have on these points and many other issues will jolt you out of your skin. I will explain them in my future videos as we go along. This is just the tip of a very, very huge and monumental iceberg. The iceberg that sank the Titanic is just an ice cube compared to what I want to share with you for the purpose of disseminating the truth. So, I came to the conclusion that the Islam we are practicing today is no better, if not worse, than a pious fraud, just like the other religions. So, what do? I decided to leave the religion of Islam. So, I left traditional Islam, or for better choice of terminology, I left Sunnism and decided to stick to the original teachings of Prophet Muhammad, which is the Quran. My sincere appeal to you is that we must not allow ourselves to be exploited, mentally or otherwise. By that I mean that we must never ever again hand our brains to anyone on a golden platter or otherwise. We need to question everything that people say to us. You need to even question everything that I say to you. Do not accept things blindly, no matter who says it to you. Study the Quran and challenge your existing beliefs and practices in light of the Quran. We need to think, reason, apply rationale and common sense. We have to learn, understand and live according to the Quran. We have to pass this to our children and grandchildren, and we need to stress the importance of understanding and practicing the Quran. We have to make a concerted effort to return to the original teaching of Prophet Muhammad. That is the legacy we need to pass on to generations that follow. This is not an easy task, but we have to lay the foundations for the next generation to build upon. When we begin living according to the Quran, we will enjoy the Quranic way of life because it simplifies our life. Religion just complicates and messes up our lives. Understanding and practicing the Quran will make us happier, progressive, prosperous, and we will be at peace with our Creator, with ourselves, and with others. That is our salvation for this world and the hereafter. I have one very important question for you. We all were taught that Prophet Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old, and that the Prophet consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. This is what we were taught in Sunni Islam. To put it bluntly, and without any apologies, it means that Prophet Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old child. This is claimed a sunnah of Prophet Muhammad according to the religion of Islam or traditional Islam. My question to you is, will you give your 6-year-old daughter's hand in marriage so that she may have sex at the age of 9 years? Personally, I most definitely would not. But the question is, would you? Until my next video, I am Ayub Karim from Quran Inspires Me. Understand the Quran to experience the revelation. Salamun alaikum, peace be with you.